Have you ever wondered if reincarnation is real? What if I told you about a case from 1939 that some believe was the first confirmed reincarnation of the Virgin Mary? It's a story that blurs the lines between faith, history, and the unexplained. So, grab a seat, and let's dive into one of the most intriguing spiritual mysteries of the 20th century. Our story begins in 1939, a world on the brink of war. But in a small, quiet town, something truly extraordinary was about to unfold. A young girl, whom we'll call Elena to protect her identity, began exhibiting behaviors and knowledge far beyond her years. Elena was born into a simple, devout family, but from the moment she could speak, she wasn't like other children. She spoke of ancient times, of a life in a dusty land under a hot sun. She described places she had never seen and people she couldn't possibly have known. Her parents were initially baffled, then concerned. They thought perhaps it was just a child's vivid imagination. But Elena's stories were consistent, detailed, and filled with a profound sense of sadness and love. She would often talk about her other son, a figure of immense importance who had a great mission to fulfill. She described his teachings, his compassion for the poor and sick, and the immense pain she felt when he was taken from her. The details were so specific, so emotionally charged, that they sent shivers down her parents' spines. Word began to spread through the small community. Was this just a fantasy or something more? The local priest was called in to speak with Elena. He was a man of logic and faith, skeptical but open-minded. He questioned her for hours, testing her knowledge of scripture and history. Elena, a child who had barely begun her schooling, spoke with the wisdom of an ancient soul. She described events from the New Testament not as stories she had been told, but as memories she had lived. She spoke of the journey to Bethlehem, the humble birth in a stable, and the sense of awe she felt holding a child she knew was destined for greatness. She recounted the flight into Egypt, the fear and uncertainty mixed with a fierce, protective love. The priest was astounded. She knew details that were not commonly taught in Sunday school's subtle cultural nuances. Geographical specifics and the Aramaic words she claimed were her native tongue. The case began to attract the attention of paranormal investigators and spiritual researchers of the era. This was a time when figures like Edgar Cayce were gaining notoriety, and the public was fascinated by psychic phenomena. Researchers from across Europe traveled to meet Elena. They conducted interviews, psychological evaluations, and hypnotic regression sessions. Under hypnosis, the story became even more detailed. She spoke with a different voice, a different cadence, using archaic phrases. She called herself Mariam, and she wept for her son, Yeshua. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence, for those who believed, was Elena's emotional connection to the story. When she spoke of the crucifixion, it wasn't a historical retelling. It was the raw, heartbreaking testimony of a mother watching her child suffer. The researchers documented the profound physiological changes she underwent during these sessions. Her heart rate would spike, and tears would stream down her face as she relived the trauma. It was an agony so real, so palpable, that it left everyone in the room speechless. But of course, there were skeptics. And their arguments were strong. Psychologists suggested the possibility of cryptomnesia, where a person unconsciously absorbs information from books, conversations, or religious teachings and later recalls it as a personal memory. Elena grew up in a deeply religious household. Wasn't it possible she had simply pieced together this elaborate narrative from the stories she heard all her life? They argued that a gifted, imaginative child could create a highly convincing fantasy, especially if it brought her attention and a sense of importance. The scientific community at the time largely dismissed the case. Reincarnation was, and still is, outside the realm of what science can prove or disprove. There was no physical evidence, no DNA to test, no way to empirically verify her claims. All they had was the testimony of a young girl and the observations of those who interviewed her. For every believer who saw divine proof, there was a skeptic who saw a psychological puzzle. So what happened to Elena? As she grew older, the memories began to fade. This is a common pattern reported in many alleged child reincarnation cases. By the time she was a teenager, the vivid recollections of her past life as Mary had become like a distant dream. She went on to live a normal, quiet life, away from the spotlight that had briefly fixated on her as a child. She rarely spoke of the experience, leaving the world to wonder what had truly happened. The case file from 1939 remains a fascinating document. It doesn't offer a definitive answer. Instead, it presents a choice: Do you believe in the possibility of souls returning, of memories transcending lifetimes? Do you see the story of Elena as evidence of a profound spiritual truth, a modern-day miracle that briefly pierced the veil of our reality? Or do you see it as a powerful example of the human mind's capacity for belief, imagination, and creating meaning? Perhaps the story isn't about proving reincarnation at all. Maybe it's about the enduring power of the narrative itself, the story of a mother's love, of sacrifice, and of a faith that can move mountains. Whether Elena was truly the reincarnation of the Virgin Mary or an imaginative child in a world desperate for miracles, her story forces us to ask big questions about life, death, and what might lie beyond. It challenges our understanding of consciousness and memory. If our identity is just our memories, what happens when someone has memories that aren't their own? The 1939 case of Elena stands as a testament to the mysteries that science has yet to solve. A footnote in history that continues to inspire debate and wonder. It's a reminder that sometimes, the most compelling stories are the ones that can't be easily explained, leaving us with more questions than answers. What do you think? Was this a genuine case of reincarnation, a complex psychological phenomenon, or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you enjoy exploring the unexplained and diving into the world's greatest mysteries, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.